Afternoon, everybody. It's been a couple of weeks since the last time I did a video, so I thought I'd go ahead and do one today. We have done the inspection today. We came out to find out if our pollen patties were being taken, and in each of the colonies that we've tested, the pollen patties had been eaten. So the determination has been made that we're going to get some more, and we're going to cut some up and bring them out and continue to feed them the pollen. That will be in addition to the pollen. Let's see if we can get down here and you can see some of their legs. Hopefully you'll see them coming and going. But that'll be in addition to the pollen that they are actually bringing in now. Yeah, there's one right there in the entrance with some pollen on her legs. And in each one of the colonies, they've been coming like that with that pollen pretty hard. So it's actually very encouraging for us because, of course, they're building up their stores now to get into get us into winter, get us through winter. So we want to get them as much pollen as we can. Back here in the back, the second hive in from the end, just a couple of days ago, my dad and my nephew came out and they got some honey into that one to strengthen her up a little bit. And so we're just balancing resources to make sure each one of these 12 colonies has everything they need to be able to survive the winter. At a certain point, we will have done everything that we can, and it will simply be up to them to make it or not. As long as the ball's in our court, we're going to make sure to do everything we can to balance that out. That said, today the work has been done. So I held on to the smoker. I have my handy dandy little hive tool. I am still in my jacket. And I thought we might go into a hive. What do you think? We are not going to do a deep inspection. I won't be pulling out a whole lot of frames. I may pull one or two out, but I don't want to disturb them too much. It's a really pretty day out, a little bit overcast, but the sun is shining. So it's a nice day. So I'm not against going into the hive, but I don't want to spend a whole lot of time in there. We are going to smoke them kind of heavy because this time of year they get a little anxious. And while I am trying to show you my bees, I'm not trying to get stung for you again. So here we go. All right. So you saw that I just smoked at the front entrance. That smoke actually gets, because they're pulling air in to keep the draft going inside to keep the temperature regulated, a lot of that smoke gets pulled in and circulated through. You give it enough time, everybody will have smelled that smoke and it'll have that calming effect. So you don't need too much smoke as you go in, but I'm going to use it anyway because as you can see, they just started boiling out up top. And that's usually a pretty good indicator that you have already gotten on their nerves. Unfortunately, the flat of the inside of the hive cover, oops, sorry, I pointed the wrong way. The flat surface there and the flat surface here, they meet together, and it looks like we smashed some bees at one of our visits, and that always kind of sucks. But does the smoke ever affect the flavor of the honey? No. Actually, pretty good question, especially considering your smoke sides of meat and all that kind of stuff. But no, the smoke doesn't affect the flavor of the honey. Frankly, you're not using enough. However, I have to admit, I'm kind of curious. You know, I've always wanted to smoke a wheel of cheese, for instance, which is something that you do on the grill. You put the cheese on the cold side of the grill, and then you just keep that smoke really heavy. And you can smoke that cheese. It takes about 12 hours or so. I've never done it before, but I kind of want to do that with the cheese. And now, Becky, I think I kind of want to smoke some honey. I think I'm going to, because it's on the cold side, you know, you won't destroy the consistency of the honey. You won't cook the honey. Girl, don't you sting me. Don't you do it. All right, but there we are. So Becky, currently the answer is no. The smoke does not affect the flavor of the honey. But we're going to find out. I've never thought about smoking honey on my grill, but that's going to happen. All right, and so as I do the smoke though, you see they just go, many of them, they just turn, they go right back on down into the hive, right? We've talked before about propolis. Let's see if we can get in here and see some of this. You can see right there, I'm gonna point to it with my hive tool, right there, this seam, that is propolis. That's what they make from the tree sap, and they use that to seal the hive. You can see that they build these bridges to the wall over here, right there, and then they do it also in between in the comb. They do that so that in different locations, ooh girls, we're gonna just keep smoking you. Listen to them. They do that just to make it easier for them to be able to get back and forth between the frames. It does make it difficult for us as beekeepers sometimes to get down in there into them, but let's see. Oh man, and I don't know if you can see it or not. Smoke it and tell you. Yeah, actually, absolutely. I think that's actually a brilliant idea. I don't know if it was on accident or not, but it's a brilliant idea. And so we're gonna try smoked honey. And who knows, maybe it'll be delicious and I'll have something else for the market. Man, that baby is in there. All right. This is getting through the propolis, by the way, sometimes is difficult when you have both hands. And today I've only got the one. So good times. But we just pry gently there. All right, that seam is broken, and then we're going to come down here, do the same thing, and pry gently. There we go. That one's up. I'm gonna see. Sorry, you may just have to look at the sky for a second. But from that angle, you should be able to, if I can get a hold of this dang thing. There we go. All right, you should be able to see the frame as I pull it out of the hive. Dang. There we go. So as I was pulling that one out, as sometimes happens, I realized that the comb on this frame is too thick, and so if I pull that out now, it's going to tear the capping off. So I'm actually going to leave that one in place, and we're going to look for a different one. It looks like over here I'll be able to pull that one out, so I'm going to pull that one out instead, because I don't want to tear that capping, because that's just going to it's going to make a mess in there, and it's going to spill out a lot of their honey stores, and I don't want to do that. So we're going to come over here where I can get to it maybe a little bit more easily. You'll still get to see a frame, but they don't have extra work created for them. Also, I'm being bumped by the bees. Some of you may remember we talked about that in the past. That's kind of them giving me a heads up that I am pissing them off. And before you know it, the tone of the conversation with the bees is going to change a little bit. Let's see if we can prop this. Nope, that's not going to work. We'll prop this right here again. I hope you can see. If not, I apologize for that. I'll pick it back up in just a second. Okay, there we go. So, let's take a look. We'll try to set it down. All right, so get them off of there real quick. There we go. Oh, dang it. They always crawl right where you need to set things down so that you can't set things down. But there you have it. We got a little bit of brood actually up here on this top one. That's actually kind of surprising to me. We might have taken that one from a bottom super and moved it up when it was light on the brood. But I'm kind of surprised to see brood up here. But you can see that they've capped. Now that's exactly what we did. This was a brood chamber, because they always, with the brood chamber, sorry, I'm trying to point with the finger and you can't see it with the screen, camera, my bad. With the brood chamber, they always build the comb, the honeycomb up around the brood. So you can actually see around the edges of the frame. That's where the honey goes. And then on the inside, that's where they will normally have the brood laid. And so it looks like that brood is finishing up, hatching out. Now you can see I destroyed some of the comb. Some of that honey's dripping out, but it's not nearly as bad. But the brood has hatched. They probably will not fill this frame again this season with anything. Maybe they'll get it with pollen, but we don't know. But anyway, you can see there they are, just diligently working. We got a little bit of brood over here as well, so I can see that. You can also see that the wax has two different colors to it. So in the center there, it's a little bit darker, whereas around the edges, it's a little bit lighter. That's just as they walk through the hive. The foreign matter, that's the dirt, anything like that, it kind of gets pulled into the collected by the wax, so it helps keep the bees clean. And so the higher the traffic, usually the darker the wax is going to be. It doesn't have any effect on the honey. It's just kind of it's a natural cleaning thing for inside the hive. I'm gonna go ahead and put this back because they're still being very, very patient with me, and I want to thank them for that by not requiring too much of them. You always want to make sure that you're moving with purpose, you're deliberate, but you can hear them getting agitated. You want to move with purpose, but you also want to take your time. Be careful. Don't smash them if you don't have to, basically. Let's see. Have we had any other questions? Use applewood. Okay. That actually sounds, I was thinking maple, but applewood actually sounds pretty good too. Hey, why not do both? If one is successful, let's find out. For those of you that don't know, Becky asked me the question if whether or not the smoke from the smoker has an effect on the flavor of the honey. The answer is no, but in that conversation it was determined that perhaps we ought to smoke honey on the grill. I love to cook on my grill, so why not? I like trying new things. It might not be successful. It might not do a thing, but it might. So we're going to find out. In fact, you know what? On the day that I do that, if I can remember, we'll do a live feed on it, so you guys can hang out with me while we smoke honey. Sounds, in high school, that's a bad idea. Let's smoke honey. No, let's not. Anyway, all right, so there we go. There's that. I'm going to try not to smash them. And I won't be able to, boy, every now and then they land on my hand like nobody's business. I won't be able to be out here long. You can see that we dripped honey on the floor. You see that we also killed some bees, so I really actually kind of feel guilty about that. But you see that we dripped honey along the top of this beehive. That won't take them any time whatsoever to clean up. Look down there at the entrance. That's how much, that's the same hive that we were just in. That's how agitated they were that we were inside. They've actually started to boil out the front. Now, as we talk, I'll back off a little bit from the hive so they don't feel like I'm messing with them too much. But we can just watch them kind of calm down a little bit. And you can actually already see that group has already started to thin out. They've already started to make their way back inside now that everything's back together. That signal took that long to get from up top where the flower is painted back down to the bottom. they've already given the all clear signal and everybody's starting to go back inside. Bees are just fascinating. I know I said at the beginning that I'm going to try to keep these to a why I love honeybees and less educational, but it's really kind of hard for the two not to go hand in hand, because everything that you learn about someone's love of bees teaches you something. And so that's just kind of neat. Everybody always wants to know the effect of smoke. I think here's a great opportunity to show an example. Watch. Watch them. It already thinned out, and inside they go to protect the hive and the honey, the queen and the brood. There shouldn't be a whole lot of brood in there right now. There's what we call the winter bees are in brood form right now. They're in their larval state right now, and so they're going to get ready to hatch out. They tend to, if I remember correctly, they tend to be a little bit bigger. I don't know if it's visually noticeable, but they tend to be a little bit bigger. But they certainly live longer because they're not doing all this flying. They're not doing all this, the stressful work. Instead, they're inside. They're maintaining the internal temperature of the hive so that the hive has a better chance of staying warm in the winter. The cold is not what will kill a hive. It's the moisture. They can actually bunch themselves up, and the friction of their bodies against each other will actually keep their internal temperature very regulated. But moisture inside the hive will absolutely devastate the colony. That will kill them. So I can't show you underneath, but each one of our bottom boards here has a screen at the base to help with ventilation. We've also got ventilation up at the top. That's one of the reasons why they fan their wings all the time. I mentioned earlier about the smoke getting drawn in. I wonder if I can show you an example of that. Oh, do I even have enough smoke? Yeah. It's just straw. That's why a lot of boys are beekeepers. We get to play with fire. All right, so I'm gonna puff this smoke at the entrance. Let's see if we can watch it get drawn in. Did you see any of it getting? Now it's getting pushed out. Excuse me. Pushed right back out at me. What happens is, as soon as they smell the smoke, of course, they basically reverse the airflow and push that smoke right back on out, because of course they don't want it in the hive. Becky, that's kind of why the smoke doesn't affect the honey. It's just not going to be in there long enough. I mean, you're talking seconds. It's just enough to get their attention, let them know that the smoke is coming in. That causes that chemical reaction, and then they go do their thing. They calm down. They do whatever they need to do to, not sting us. So anyway, the winter bees, they'll do the friction. So that's the brood that's in there. They will hatch. These bees that are here now, they will begin the dying off. And then we'll be left with a much smaller colony going into winter. They don't need a whole lot. They're not doing foraging. They're not gathering anything. So they don't need a whole lot of bees in there. There's not a whole lot of brood, but what brood is left, they'll need to keep warm. And then they just kind of hunker down for most of the winter. And then about halfway into winter, right when it's beginning to get its coldest, they, for lack of a better phrase, they come alive, and they start generating a lot of body heat. The queen will actually begin to lay, so the workers will begin to generate heat inside the hive. She begins, because they've got to now they've got to keep that brood warm. They begin to consume their stores, which is why it's so critical for us right now to be getting as much of the honey and the pollen in here as we possibly can, because once we get into winter, which is when they need to be the most conservative, they go nuts. They start consuming honey They start consuming that pollen. They start generating that heat. She starts laying like mad, because it's going to take that, if they survive, it's going to take that long for the bees that she's laying to hatch. Once they hatch, they've got to get their wings together. They got to strengthen up. It's going to take a couple of weeks for them to actually get strong enough to actually be able to start flying. And about the time they start to be able to fly, flowers are blooming, and so they're able to go out and start the gathering. That's in a perfect world. That's when the colony times their situation exactly right, and everything works according to plan. If they're too early, they're not going to have anything. They're not going to have any food. They won't have anything to replace what they've burned, and so they will in fact starve themselves to death in trying to grow. And really all they're actually trying to do is get themselves built up so much that they're overcrowded, and then they can swarm. That first swarm of the season is for population growth. Anything after that is, accidents happen, supersedure, mismanagement from the beekeeper, that sort of thing. There's several things that come into play, but that first swarm of the season, that's the objective of the bee. They want to split. Okay, but in that gamble that they take, sometimes they lose. So, listen, it is about 10 minutes after 1 my time. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I do apologize. Last week I was actually on the days I had available to come to the bees, I was feeling a bit under the weather, and so I actually instead just kind of decided to stay home and relax a little bit and not come out. I didn't want to give anybody, the COVID or anything, so I stayed home and just breathed on my family. So anyway, I didn't come out and I didn't do a video last week. So this week I wanted to make sure that I got something recorded, and I thought as a treat for me not recording anything last week, we went ahead and went into the hive and got to see at least that one frame. I hope you enjoyed that. Next video, I actually just talked to my dad about it. We're going to go ahead and come out here with some lawn chairs. We're going to sit at the bees, and I'm going to ask him some questions. We're going to have a conversation about what got him into beekeeping 40-ish years ago, and what has kept him going all this time. Because now, of course, he raised me in the bees. I'm a beekeeper with him, and now my nephew, my brother's son, is actually learning the trade with us as well. Seems to be really enjoying it, so much so that we actually consider these two hives here and here on this front row, these actually are Garrett's hives. And so he's actually a contributing member to this little team of ours as well. So really kind of excited about that, to be able to sit down and talk to my dad and share his story with you guys. And hopefully it'll be entertaining and informative as well. If you do enjoy this video, please remember I am going to be posting it to YouTube on my channel, Buzz and Blossoms Bee Farm. And so I'll be posting it from there and then sharing it back to Facebook again. Get on there, watch it, like it, subscribe it. Most importantly, please share it with your friends. Let them know that we're getting on here. We're talking about bees. And I try to address your questions. I mean, Becky for certain can tell you that if I see your question pop up on my screen, I will address it immediately. Otherwise, I will review these comments and I'll come back to it and maybe address it in the next video, something like that. So let me know what you think. Like it, subscribe it, and share with me your ideas. Tell me what you would like to see on the channel. Tell me, ask me some questions that you'd like to get answers to when it comes to the honeybees, and I'll see what I can do about addressing that and giving you credit for bringing that to my attention. Okay, thanks guys, see ya.